Good morning children, welcome to the English class. So in our last class, we were studying with the lesson, the great spirit of the sal tree. So children, today we'll continue that lesson. Before continuing the lesson, in our last class, what we had learned? We had learned that once there lived a king in North India who wanted to build his palace with a single wooden column. So he sent his minister to far and nearby forest of his kingdom. But the men were unable to bring a single huge tree. The king, he wanted a big tree which was enough to build his palace with single wooden column. Why the men are not able to bring the huge tree to the kingdom? Because the road which passed from the forest to the kingdom was very difficult. So the king suggests his men to bring the tree by using elephants, horses, bullocks. But the men were not able to drag or carry the tree to the kingdom. So the king got angry and he told them to bring a tree from the nearby village. So the men go in search of a splendid tree which was big enough to build the palace. So at last men will find only one tree. In that tree lived a spirit, and that tree was worshipped by many of the village people. So the men also, they offered prayer to the sal tree, and they requested the spirit to leave the tree within 1 week, because within 1 week they would cut that tree. So by hearing this, the tree understood what would happen with it. For few minutes the tree remained quiet, and then the top branches bent and the leaves started to whisper. So children, what did they whisper? What happened to the king? What happened to the tree? Did the king cut the tree? So we will see in this class. So open your textbook, page number 59. So children, we will continue the lesson. Should the king's decision hold, not only shall we perish, we and our spirit, for the sal spirit cannot exist anywhere else. But our fall will crush all the little sal trees that have sprung up and thrive under our protection. For ourselves we care not, but for the children's sake we wish that the king had not wished it so. So the men who had come to cut the tree thought that when the breeze blew through the leaves, they thought that the tree had given permission to cut it down. But what the trees were whispering, what they were talking within each other, they were talking within each other that the king's decision hold. Should the king's decision hold? So whether the king has to stop the cutting of a tree, whether he has to change his mind of cutting down the tree. Not only shall we perish, not only the tree will die, but also the spirit which is inside the tree, that also cannot live anywhere else. And also the little small sal trees which are grown under the splendid sal tree will die. So that small little sal trees which are sprung up, sprung means arise, which are arisen, which are risen newly, they will also die without the protection of the big sal tree. They tell that the leaves of the trees, they speak within themselves and they tell that for ourselves we care not. We are not caring for ourselves. But for the children's sake, we wish that the king had not wished it so. But they are wishing that for the children's sake, for the sake of the little sal trees, the big sal tree is wishing that the king would change his mind of cutting down the tree. So, in this paragraph, what it is? So, the trees, the leaves, they are discussing among themselves that if the huge trees are cut down, then what would happen? The little sal trees which are grown under that big tree would die. So, they are wishing that let the king change his mind. The spirit within the tree thought, this must not be allowed. I must visit the king and persuade him. So, the spirit which lived in that sal tree, it will think within itself. It will think that how at all he must stop cutting down of tree. And also the spirit will think that he should go near the king, visit the king. He should go near the king and persuade him. Persuade him means convince him. And he should convince the king to stop cutting down of the tree. That night, while the king was asleep, a shining figure appeared to him in his dreams and spoke in a voice that was like a rustle. I am the spirit of the sal tree, O king. Your foresters this day have told me of your decision to fell me. I have come to beg you to change your mind. So, at that night, when the king was asleep, in his sleep, he will see a shining figure in front of him. So, and that shining figure will speak, will speak in a low voice, and it will tell that it is a spirit of the sal tree. And also, it will request the king to change his mind. No, I cannot, grumbled the king. Yours is the only tree in all my parks strong enough to support a palace building, and therefore I must have it. So the king, in his dream only, he will grumble. Grumble means murmur. He will speak in a low voice. He will tell that, he will murmur that yours is the only tree in the parks which is strong enough to support the palace building. So he will tell that he must have that sal tree. Consider, O king, for 1,000 years I have been worshipped by the people of many villages, and never has anything but good come out of them. The birds nest in me. I send a vast and lovely shade upon the grass beneath me. Against my trunk people rest, and wild creatures too. Glad of the coolness, the earth blesses me. So, the sal tree is trying to convince the king. The the spirit of the sal tree, he is telling that for 1,000 years, people have been worshipping me. So people have been praying in front of me, and they have never harmed me. And I also give them what? Shade. Okay, so the birds have nest in my tree, and also the people, they take rest under my cool shade. And also wild creatures, they also take rest, and the earth is happy because I am giving cool shade to the earth. I am making the earth cool. All true enough, good tree spirit, spoke the king. But for all this, I cannot spare you. I have made up my mind. So the king will tell that, okay, that's everything is true, but I cannot spare you. I cannot leave you. So the king, he will tell that he has decided to cut the tree. Though the birds have built their nest, though the tree is giving lovely shade for the people and for the wild creatures to take rest, but the king will tell the tree spirit that he has already decided to cut it down, and he will never change his mind. Then grant me one last request, said the tree spirit. Let me be felled in 3 parts. First, my head with its crown of waving greenery. Next, my middle with its 100 strong arms and hands. Last, my base, which bears the heaviest and knottiest of my limbs upon it. So, the king So the tree spirit tries to convince the king, but the king doesn't agree. So the tree spirit tells him there is one last request there. So the tree spirit will tell the king that it has to be cut down into 3 parts. Felled means cut down. Okay, the tree spirit will tell the king that it should be cut down into 3 parts. First, its head must be cut down, which is full of greenery, okay, which is full of leaves. Then the middle part, which bears 100 strong arms and hands with hundreds of branches, okay. Then at last, the base, which has heaviest and knottiest of my limbs. Knottiest means full of knots, full of gantu, okay. So bear, okay. Last, what the at last the base has to be cut. Last, the base which has what roots, bear, okay. At last, the base has to be cut. So this is a strange request, said the king. Never before did I hear one who desired 3 times to suffer the death stroke. Why not endure the agony but once and have it over? So the king will tell the tree spirit that it is a strange request. And also he will tell that never before did I hear of one who desired 3 times to suffer the death stroke. So the king will tell that before I have never heard that a thing who want to suffer the death stroke 3 times. Stroke means hit. Okay. The death hit. The king is going to cut the tree, so he will tell that nobody wants to hit 3 times to death. Why not endure the agony but once and have it over? And also he will ask the tree spirit, why don't you have pain only once? Okay. So the tree spirit will tell the king, it is like this, O king. Around me have grown up my family. Dozens of young sal trees have sprung from me and thrived in my generous shadow. Should you fell me with one mighty stroke, my weight would certainly crush all my children to death. But if 3 times I suffer the stroke and fall in 3 pieces, some of the little ones may escape. Is my prayer granted? So, when the king tells the tree spirit that why do you like to suffer the death stroke 3 times and why not only 1 time? When the king questions the tree spirit like this, then the tree spirit will tell him that so there are dozens of, okay, there are many what? There are many small trees which are sprung from me. Okay, they live in they live under its generous shadow. They live under its huge shadow. If you cut me with one mighty stroke, my weight will not allow the small tree to live. It will crush them. Okay, the weight of the big sal tree would crush. Okay, would crush the small sal tree which are sprung. So, if the tree, if it's cut into 3 parts, then at least some of the small sal tree may remain. Okay children, so in this paragraph what the tree spirit will tell? Dozens of young sal trees have sprung under my shadow. So if I am cut with only one stroke, then that little trees will crush into death. If the sal tree is cut into 3 parts, then at least some of the little sal trees may live. And also the tree spirit will ask, is its prayer granted? Indeed it is, said the king, whereupon the tree spirit faded away. So the king he will tell that, okay, your prayer is granted, your request is granted, and the tree spirit faded away. The tree spirit went away. The next morning the king called his minister and his foresters and told them that he had changed his mind. So the next morning the king will call his ministers and he will tell his foresters that he has changed his mind. The column for the new palace should be built of stone and not of wood. For said he, within the sal tree dwells a spirit nobler than my own. And he told them of his vision and they all marveled. So the next morning, the king he will call his ministers and he will tell that he has changed his mind and his new palace would be built of stone and not of wood. And also he will tell that there is a spirit which is nobler, which is kind than his spirit. And also he will tell them of his dream, and everybody were marveled, everybody were surprised. So, the Chipko movement. So, what is this Chipko movement, children? It is a protest by villagers who embrace the tree to prevent it from being felled. It is a protest, okay? It is a protest against by villagers where they will go and hug the tree from being cut down. So, a prominent leader who has contributed significantly to this movement is Sundarlal Bahugun, a Gandhian. So, a leader who supports this is Sundarlal Bahugun, who is a Gandhian, who is a follower of Gandhian. Children, I hope you have understood this lesson. Read the lesson once properly, and if you have any doubt, please contact me. Thank you, children.